Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. I'm here today at the Walk of Hope March. We've walked from Queen's Park up to the Village Green and I'm talking to a few people who are cancer survivors, and I've got Rosie Bambrick with me, who was diagnosed at the age of 31 with blood cancer. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you, Megan.
So, Rosie, we were just talking about your journey, and you're carrying a little baby who's probably all of... Is he
8 months?
8 months old in a pouch on your front, and he started to cry during the service, and you were able to give him a quick little feed. And I looked over and I thought to myself, aren't you lucky to have breasts that you can breastfeed? Tell me about your journey. And I was asking you about how you were diagnosed and did you harvest eggs at that stage. So tell us all about from the start.
So at 31, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. All I had was, or the only symptom I had of cancer was an ongoing cough in the middle of winter, which, tell me a resident in Toowoomba who hasn't had that sort of a symptom, but I'm lucky that I had a good GP who could see that it was more than just a cough and did the right investigation quite promptly to see us through an early diagnosis, and it meant that despite having a relapse, I've still been able to go on and live life, and through doing preservative IVF, I've been able to start a family, which I think was probably the biggest fear and regret that I had when I faced my mortality as a 31-year-old with a cancer diagnosis, that, you know, have I lost the opportunity to have a family, that I prioritised my career, that, well, you know, you question so much about your own life, and at the tender age of 31, with other priorities and other career goals in my sights, it even took my GP 3 times to tell me that I had cancer. She hugged me 3 times, which GPs don't do, to get the message through. And fast forward, I've been in remission now for many years and was able to start a family through the miracle of IVF. And here we are.
So tell me, this is your second child, Toby. Tell me about the process of having to harvest your eggs. Like the doctor, how quickly does all of that happen? What happens? You get pumped full of hormones, and what happens then?
So they stimulate, a standard cycle in that your ovaries produce more than one egg because they stimulate them with so much more hormones. Given that I had a large mass in my chest, which was causing the cough, that was one single tumour I had, it was enormous. They had to give me 3 times the amount of hormones that they would give a woman my build, simply because the tumour was taking all the hormones and my ovaries just weren't producing the number of eggs they wanted. But we were able to manipulate that and monitor that as that first cycle went through, so we could increase it steadily until we got the result that we needed. And we harvested 7 eggs, and we harvested those in 2013. And on my chest is a sleeping Toby, who was born in 2022, earlier this year. So do the maths. It's pretty amazing to be able to have the opportunity to put those family plans on hold while I basically went through some very intense treatment. I had chemotherapy for my first round of cancer, and then when I relapsed at 33, I had a stem cell transplant as well as full-time chemotherapy. Had to take a year off life and move down to Brisbane, and it was Monday to Friday chemo, just like you would go to the office, I'd go to the hospital. And then after 6 months of that, to have a stem cell transplant, which was it's a very intense therapy, and radiation to follow, all through my chest. So to be able to shape the radiation dosage that I would receive, that it could avoid as much of my heart tissue, my lung tissue, my breast tissue, and only focus on the areas where the cancer was, it meant that I, like you say, Megan, I could breastfeed. As far as I'm aware, all my organs are functioning well, and hopefully they'll continue to do so.
Tell me about the sequence of how quickly you had to harvest those eggs. You just had a diagnosis of having this massive lump in your chest, and then they tell you, now you've got to get all these hormones and what happens to you when you get all those hormones?
I guess it's different for every woman. I mean, some women persevere through PMS more than others, and some really do feel that they suffer from it. And as a woman who's never really had intense PMS, to suddenly have, I guess, 3 times the amount of hormones as a regular woman would, it was very intense. There was a lot of emotions, obviously just being diagnosed with cancer, but then to have those emotions amplified. I'm sure there's many women out there who can nod and appreciate that at certain times of the month that's just what happens. And then to go into the operating theatre on a Friday to collect those eggs and look down and have a little piece of surgical tape on my hand with a number written on it, and that's how many they were able to harvest. The first time round, at 31, I was able to harvest 7 eggs, and then at 33, because my body was still recovering from all of the intensive treatment with chemotherapy, I was only able to harvest 3, but from that we've got 2 beautiful kids and 1 more embryo in cryo storage. So there's another, it's not a guarantee, it's a promise, it's an opportunity, and it's a little bit of hope for us.
Well, I almost feel like that's a beautiful way to finish this interview, but I have so much more that I want to ask you about, because this is the walk of hope that we've done today. Tell me about hope. Is that the only thing that you've got left when you're in the middle of all of that?
A lot of times that is how I felt, despite being surrounded by family, by friends, by wonderful nurses and doctors. I mean, the medical staff who have assisted me throughout both of my cancer journeys have been amazing. It is still a very lonely path to walk, and when things do feel dark, when you feel like you don't have much else other than clinging to the hope of this chemotherapy round will be over soon, or we'll get a break again in a couple of months, and it's not just taking it day by day. Sometimes it's literally hour by hour, or even 10 minutes to the next 10 minutes. But when hope is all you have, it's what helps you get through.
How important is it to do things like this walk today and see other women? Do you look each other in the eye and you give each other a nod and think, yep, sister, I know what you've been through?
That's exactly right. And to remember those who we've lost and celebrate them and commemorate the lives that they've led, and still remember to live the lives that we still have to the fullest, is so important. To just take a moment and come together and be together, because there's some big feelings. I mean, as you and I talk, I've got tears streaming down my face in public, but that's okay. And I've been able to reach out to my friends who have been here today and hold them as they let the emotions wash through and excuse me.
And to, yes, think about the next 10 minutes, I guess. Rosie, tell me about your career before you got this diagnosis. And lovely Nicole Rangira said in her speech that it was like when you get a diagnosis, it's like having someone sitting on your chest. All the breath goes out of you. What sort of work were you doing before, and what sort of big life were you living?
I was a 31-year-old HR professional working in consultancy over at Classic Recruitment, and absolutely loving what I do. Very passionate and certainly very energised by not just the work that I did, but the clients and the candidates that I would meet. And it was almost like matchmaking sometimes, Megan. It was more than just, I guess, matching up a resume with a job description. I mean, you've got to link in people, their personalities, and the workplaces and work cultures and value systems and all that sort of thing. There's certainly a depth to recruitment that a lot of people sometimes dismiss, but certainly working, I think I'd been in HR for about 8 years at that point, and having to suddenly face my mortality and ask myself, is this it? Will I continue to enjoy my career? And I worked part-time during my chemotherapy because, you know, it was a lot to give up. Sadly, second time round I wasn't able to, but I guess to have all of the financial goals and the pressure of mortgages and life goals and that sort of thing was heavy. And then to ask myself, have I missed out on the opportunity to have a family because chemotherapy will take that away from me? Or will I even get to the end of this? Because a cancer diagnosis is not always something you get to walk away from. I mean, I've lost many friends to cancer. Some I've met along the way, some who have come forward and told me about their journeys. And yeah, it's affected everybody, but I guess that's how it really hit hard for me. And as a result of chemo brain and just the way that your lifestyle does need to change after such an intensive round of treatment, I'm working part-time. Well, obviously I'm on maternity leave at the moment, which I'm very grateful for, and looking at taking my career in a different direction. Things like chemo brain are real. It's not just a bit of ditziness or a bit of forgetfulness. I certainly don't have the same sharpness and that acuity that I used to have. But look, I'm still here, and I feel that I've still got plenty to offer, and proudly do so. I'm an ambassador for Hope Horizons, which is South West Queensland's first cancer wellness centre, and certainly embody everything they stand for. And
I hope to go and talk to Jo Capp, who's the chair of Hope Horizons, in a minute. But just tell the listeners about Hope Horizon. What is it exactly?
So it's a cancer wellness centre where we seek to diminish the impacts of cancer. And one of the hallmarks of the services that Hope Horizons provides is access to a range of allied health services with no out-of-pocket costs. There's also a wonderful network and community of people who, whether they're carers, whether they're supporters, whether they've been through cancer themselves, like myself, and it's great to have that camaraderie, to meet a group of like-minded people who understand it, who, when I say, I'm so tired because of chemotherapy, you don't have a girlfriend who pops up on the other side of the conversation and says, I'm tired too. I've watched all the reruns of Sex and the City last night and there's not enough coffee in the day.
First world problem, isn't it?
That's
definitely.
Right.
If people want to get involved or they think that they would like to utilise Hope Horizons, how do they go about it?
Jump on Google and look up the Hope Horizons Toowoomba website and get in touch with us. We're always reaching out for volunteers, not just in the centre, but we've also got a fantastic op shop over at the High Street Plaza. So we'd love to have some volunteers over there, as well as volunteers for events, whether it's hospitality or marketing or whatever you'd like to contribute. We'd certainly love to hear from you.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Now, I didn't know there was an op shop over at High Street, and you know that's where I get all my clothes from, so I'll have to start going over there and supporting it. But Rosie, it has been such a treat that you've shared your journey with me this morning. I'm sorry I have sprung it on you so quickly. I always ask my guests at the end of our conversations, what's the song that can't keep you off the dance floor? And who's your favourite royal? Now, that person doesn't have to be British royal and it doesn't have to be a living royal. So let's start with the song that can't keep you off the dance floor.
Oh, where do I start? I was a bit of a dance floor demon before cancer slowed me down a bit. I'd have to say dance and house music. Remixes of almost anything will get me out there. Anything with a good bass line, I'm there.
You like a good bass drop or something? Look at me, looking, sounding like I know what I'm talking about. Okay, who's your favourite royal?
Oh, it's got to be our beautiful late Queen. She's always handled everything with such grace and poise, and certainly inspired me to keep calm and carry on in face of some pretty steep things in my life.
What a wonderful way to finish the interview, Rosie. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me.
My pleasure. Thanks, Megan.
I'll just remind the listeners that we're on 102.7 FM and we're in Big Little Small Talk, that opportunity where I get to talk to people out in the community. My second guest today on our Hope Walk is Bronwyn Jones, and Bronwyn and I were walking down from Queen's Park and she started to tell me about her career as a special care neonatal nurse up at the base hospital and her journey too with cancer. So welcome along to Big Little Small Talk, Bronwyn. Thank you for making time for me.
Thank you, Megan. It's my pleasure.
Tell me about why you're here today, why you do the walk.
Well, in 2018 I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Came completely out of the blue. We've had no family history. I felt a lump and went off to the breast clinic at St Andrews and never suspected that it was going to be breast cancer and it was going to be me. And so I've been having 2.5 years of active treatment, and this is just one of those joyous events in a very bad journey, because none of us think it will happen to us, that brings everyone together and people at different stages. And last year and this year I sort of walk for the people that have been lost, because I'm grateful to still be here after all that time. I have 3 very good friends who all lost their mums to breast cancer, and you know that you never replace a mum or a sister or a wife, and super grateful for the medical care that we have here in Toowoomba. I've got a girlfriend who's a doctor in Brisbane, and when I was diagnosed she said, "Oh, do you want me to get you into people down here? I can get you the best care." And I thought, no, I want to be in my community. The medical attention that we get here is second to none. It is world class, and I'm so grateful that it happens in our backyard. That, you know, when I had chemo, my girlfriends they did a roster, and somebody would pick me up and take me and sit with me through all my chemo, and take me home, and then they'd look after me afterwards. You know, it is so wonderful that it can happen in our community, and we're treated like people, by people who we know. And just here to celebrate that.
Tell me about the time between finding lumps. Did you found lumps? And you as a nurse, like you said, I didn't ever think that it was going to be me or that it was going to happen. So how long between when you found these lumps and you thought, I don't like the feel of this, I don't think this is going to be good? What was that like?
Well, I can't remember the time frame. I'd always had quite cystic breasts, so I'd started having mammograms and ultrasounds in my late 30s. I'd had children quite late, so 31, 33 and 35. By my late 30s, you know, I just had cystic breasts, so I could feel lumps. And that kind of lured me into a false sense of security, that every time, you know, I'd had aspiration done, I'd had other ultrasounds done. No, it's just a cyst. And I thought the same this time as well, even though it was a big one. My tumour was 5 centimetres by the time I found it. It had spread all into my lymph nodes, in my armpit, behind my pectoral muscle. So it's had certainly spread. But the beauty of the medical care here in Toowoomba is that I went to the breast clinic at St Andrews, and they just get things happening quickly. So I think that was a Monday, and 8 days later I was having surgery on the following Tuesday. I'd had a PET scan in between. I'd seen the surgeon. I'd seen the oncologist to know that I was definitely going to be having chemotherapy as well, and all that. Bit of a whir, but it was 8 days after my diagnosis that I was in having surgery and starting to do something about this. And I'm not sure that would happen in a big centre. You know, one doctor just rings the next doctor and says, you know, I've got Bronnie here, and you know, can you see her this afternoon? And the answer was yes. It was amazing.
When you get a diagnosis like that, do you live your life differently, do you think?
Most definitely. Life actually gets put on hold for a very long time. It is all you can do. I have 3 kids. My 2 boys had already moved to Brisbane for studies, and my daughter did the final 6 months of her grade 12 with me doing chemo. So, you know, I was the absent mother who was there. That she had to carry on life and grow up and do her grade 12 things. She got a licence, which was fortuitous because I didn't drive a car for 12 months. Your brain's just not in it when you're having chemo, and I was just too unwell. But you know, you try and do all the things that normal grade 12s do, and you put a wig on and go to formal, and you know, graduation day and things like that. But it is a bit of a blur to me, and thank God there's photos to remind me, because you're fighting for your life. And
do you carry a certain amount of guilt about that, do you think?
I don't know that it's guilt. You can only do what you can do, and in this case, it is what it is. I never wondered why me. when I know that it's 1 in 7, why not me? And you know, if it, I know statistics don't work that way, but you know, if I can take one for the team and 6 other of my beautiful friends miss out on doing this, then I'll take that for sure.
Tell me about the importance of hope. What does it mean? It was only this morning listening to the speakers that I really grasped how important hope is.
Yeah, you probably don't see it as that when it's happening to you, but it is that essence that, you know, you can be given this diagnosis, and yes, you wonder if you're going to die. Absolutely, you think you're going to die. And you know, when they call mine high risk, it's high risk of, you know, coming back, and high risk that they won't be able to treat it. But we, you know, the hope is that you try whatever they tell you, and the hope is that you see it through to the other end, and that you get some good years, and you really do value life after a diagnosis like this. That all the statistics for breast cancer, you know, they're only talking 5-year statistics. You know, they say 9 out of 10 women. Well, that's only a 5-year statistic, and I'm a bit greedy. I want way more than that. Way more than that. Yeah, and you know, some people get way less than that. But I think you just you don't try to hope. You just have it there, and that's what keeps driving you forward to keep trying the next thing, and knowing that you're doing your best that you can.
Have you ever gone down the route of maybe being a nurse? You might not do this, but you know, I'm going to try tea tree oil, or you know, anything wacky, or.
So people do suggest really unusual things, and it's kind of offensive at the time when you're doing your best you can to do Western medicine, because this is what's proven to work, and so I am sticking to what they tell me. I'm doing it 100%, and I'm not skipping anything. What I have found unbelievably useful is Hope Horizons here in town. They had opened a few months, I think, before I was diagnosed in 2018. I didn't know what they were, but I knew a few girlfriends were volunteering. So when I was diagnosed, I have been surrounded by the most amazing friends and family who are all doing beautiful things for me, but I needed to belong somewhere where this was happening to other people, where people understood. And Hope Horizons was that place for me. Once a month they have a morning tea, not only breast cancer, but an array of cancers, and just meeting people in the same boat that have gone down this same road. It was a sense of belonging that I was looking for, and they do beautiful, they have therapists that do oncology massage, reflexology, lymphedema massage. You can see a psychologist. The other thing when you're diagnosed with cancer, and well, for anybody, but you stop work, everything is expensive. It's really expensive to be unwell. The scans, we'll just do another scan. Well, it might be another $700 every time they say, we'll just do another scan. And, you know, and all the medications that you've got to go on, it just costs a lot. And the beauty with Hope Horizons, I wouldn't have gone looking, or probably been able to afford the therapies that were good for my soul, not just the ones that were good medically for me, whereas what they were giving was to me as a person to have the strength to keep fighting this from a medical point of view.
It's so interesting, and it's so unscripted that both you and my last guest, Rosie, have talked about Hope Horizons in much the same sort of language. So tell me about Hope Horizons. Do you still go there, and are there people who have been, you know, I won't say cured, but are in remission or whatever? Do people still go there just for the support and things?
Yes, I'm sure they do. It sort of gives me that ongoing refocus of me as a person, I think, and it gives me the inner strength to go back to work. This never leaves you, having cancer. There's always in the back of your mind that it might come back, and you're not the same person that you were when you were diagnosed. So many things change, and there are ongoing physical side effects of all of the treatments, and these still help with that. It's not ever done and dusted, and for breast cancer, they'll never use the word remission or cured. There is always a chance that breast cancer comes back, and it doesn't always come back in your breast. It will spread. Well, it can spread to your brain and your lungs and your bones and your liver and those sorts of things. And that's a fear that anyone with breast cancer probably lives with. That the next scan might show something that it's gone somewhere else, and you're then stage 4. So which is not curable, treatable, but not curable.
That I can't imagine that sort of heightened level of stress in your life, all that cortisol that must be pumping through your veins the whole time. And as you say, you're just a different person physically and mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as time goes on, the first couple of times I came to breast cancer things, for October, and they'd talk about the survivors, and I didn't know what category I fitted in. I didn't see myself as a survivor when I was still having treatment. I thought, I haven't survived anything. I've survived some chemo, and I've survived radiation, and all of it's hard, like really hard. And then I did a trial drug for 12 months, and I guess I survived that, but I don't yet see myself as a survivor. I'm not sure how much time has to pass before that's the category that you put yourself in. I don't know. There may be no year cut off, like 10 years or something. I don't know what that time is, but yeah, I'm someone with breast cancer, and that's all
a journey. Okay, now Bronwyn, I'm sorry to spring this on to you, but I always finish up my interviews by asking 2 questions, and I'll give you a little bit of time to think about them. One is, who's your favourite royal? Now, this person doesn't have to be British, and they don't have to be living, so have a little think about that. And then the other question I always ask people is, what's the song that can't keep you off the dance floor? So I imagine, Bronwyn, you being married to an old Tara boy, Megan O'Hara from Greenbar Tara, the listeners have heard that a few times, that you would like a dance, not necessarily a country song. So let's start with...
definitely not a country song, yes. Let's
start with your favourite royal.
Yeah, I think that would be Princess Mary. I think she, she is grace personified. She is beautiful. She is an involved mother, and she represents Aussies with just the most beautiful demeanour. I'm really proud she's one of us, and she's, fitted into a whole different way of life so graciously. I don't know from bar of soap, but she always looks so fabulous, and anyway, yeah, she'd be my fave.
I think that's the first Princess Mary I've had, but it's very fitting for you, I think. Oh. Yeah. All right, well, let's go on to your song. What's the song that can't keep you off the dance floor if you're in the commercial hotel or the Hui Maui in Tara?
It would be Shut Up and Dance With Me.
Leroy might have to find Shut Up and Dance With Me, and we'll play it. Thank you so much, Bronwyn, for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk. It's been a real joy to hear your story, and I'm sure your eloquence and thoughtfulness has resonated with the listeners today.
Oh, Megan, it's been a joy. What a coincidence to just meet on the crossing, and I've really enjoyed the time I've spent with you today, so thank you so much.
Thanks again for tuning in to Big Little Small Talk, listeners. I've got one final guest today, the person that we've heard so much about, and it's the chair of Hope Horizons, and completely unscripted, our last 2 guests talked about the importance of Hope Horizons in their life, and I've got the chair, and her name's Jo Capp. So Jo Capp, thank you for being my guest on Big Little Small Talk.
Thank you, Megan. I'm feeling very honoured. I've been asked to be a speaker of hope today, and now to be asked to talk to you. I feel very honoured. Thank you.
Yeah, no, your speech was beautiful. I think it was you who said about it's almost like when you get that diagnosis that the wind gets knocked out of you, that all your breath gets taken away.
Yeah, it's an analogy that I've used a lot when, having been told when my son was diagnosed with cancer, it was almost like all the air was sucked out of my lungs. But thankfully I was sitting down, otherwise I probably would have collapsed. And people have often said that that's the feeling that you get. It's almost like, how do I take that next breath? What happens next? Cancer diagnosis can really knock you off your feet completely.
Tell me about Reid's diagnosis and the sequence of events leading up to that.
So Reed was in grade 1 at Mater Day. He had a sore leg, and he was a really busy kid. Like, he was one of those kids that was always running around. He was on his bike all the time. He was kicking a ball, but he had a sore leg consistently for about 3 months. Eventually, I thought I'd better have a look at it. I mean, Mother of the Year, finally. had a bit of a look, put him up on the kitchen bench and noticed that his right leg was considerably larger than his left leg, just from the knee down. It didn't look infected and it didn't look sick. It just was slightly larger. So we decided to take him to St Vincent's and have an x-ray. And that x-ray basically came back with lots of bells and whistles. And we had, it was a Sunday, and we had the paediatric doctor on call come and see us. We had the orthopaedic doctor on call come and see us, and it was just like a whirlwind. The next day he had an MRI at St Vincent's, and then we were told to go straight to Brisbane, and we went to the Royal Children's Hospital back then. It was the one over at Hurston. And we started treatment probably about 2-3 weeks later, because he had to have a diagnosis because there's so many types of bone cancers. So basically we just went into hospital then. We moved to Brisbane. Reed and I moved to Brisbane, and Dave and Alex stayed in Toowoomba. And my mum moved up from Armidale to help with Reed and I, which was a pretty tumultuous time.
So you got the diagnosis when you were at St Vincent's on the Sunday? Did you get it straight away then, did you?
Well, no. So it was Anthony Wilson, who was the orthopaedic surgeon, that came in, and his words to me exactly, and I wrote this in my book, was exactly, "I don't like the look of this, Jo. It does not look good at all." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Look, I don't want to say anything, but it doesn't look like it's going to be treatable here." And that's all he had to say, really. So the next day, when it was confirmed that it was a tumour and that it was one that we needed to fight, we knew that we had cancer. We knew basically that he was supposed to go to school that day. His sister, I packed her off to school without really knowing, and then we went to the hospital, got the diagnosis, and was sent to Brisbane straight away, straight to oncology.
My God, what a roller coaster. I feel so weepy even thinking about it. But so what ensued then over the years?
So Reed then had to have, he basically was diagnosed with an incredibly aggressive cancer, and we were only given 40% chance that he would actually beat it. But he did beat it, Megan, it's okay.
I know.
He went on, we had 6 rounds of chemo, and then he had to have major surgery where they took his cancer was actually in his right tibia. So they took the right tibia out, and then they took the left fibula and they put it into the right tibia's position. And when I do some talks and things, I talk about the fact that that fibula actually was God's spare parts, and it got a major upgrade. So it got a promotion in its life. It went from a non-weight-bearing bone to a weight-bearing bone. Lots of issues with that. So what happened then? We had the surgery, he went back in, he had to have another 8 rounds of chemo. Reed was only 6 at the time, and the levels of chemotherapy that he had actually caused him immense illness. He got very sick, and by the 7th round of chemo, the oncologist basically said, "We're not going to do the 8th," because he was just too sick. So he actually only had 7. And thankfully, it didn't matter because the cancer hasn't come back. And he's now 21. So that's pretty exciting stuff for me. But he went through, basically then, he had 2 little bones in his right leg and a small bone in his left leg, just 1 bone in his left leg. So he then went on to break his leg, I think it was 14 times. It is 14 times that it was broken throughout the years, from 7 years old right through to when he had his last surgery, which was 15.
So did he break his leg on purpose, or?
No, well, sometimes it was broken on purpose for surgeries to straighten it from all the other breaks, but he would just be walking around and it would just break, because that bone can grow into a bigger bone and be a stronger bone, but it actually can also it takes a while for that to happen. So the more you walk on your bones, the stronger they become. So he was encouraged to walk and kick a ball and ride a bike and do all those things, but he often broke his leg. He would just break it just walking around. One day he actually broke his leg while he was on crutches recovering from another broken leg. And he was he was playing bull rush on the oval at Mater Day. And literally, I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. So I remember the school ringing me and they're saying, Jo, and I said, you're not ringing me to tell me he's broken his leg. And they said, well, he says he has broken it. I said, he's on crutches. How can he do that? But yeah, he did. He was just too active.
He was just a kid that never slowed him down.
No.
So what about you and your relationship and your life as a parent and as a person? How did you cope with that?
So it was really tough. And the book that I wrote, which is called 4 Hot Chips.
Tell me, we'll just digress quickly.
Yes.
Why did you call it 4 Hot Chips?
You have to read the book. No, just kidding. No, we called it 4 Hot Chips because Reed actually went a period of time, he went 11 days without eating, and he had a nasal gastric tube which actually fed him. So he was fine, but he was really unwell. He was so unwell. And my mum and I were taking it in shifts each morning and each night. One of us was always with him. And he'd woken up one morning and he said, Nini, that's what he called my mum, I really feel like some hot chips. And it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. So Mum knew that there was a Hungry Jack's about 1 kilometre through the hospital. You had to go all the way from Royal Children's, all the way through the the Royal Women's, all the way through Royal Women's, across the road, and then there was a Hungry Jack's, and it was a 24-hour Hungry Jack's. So Mum ran, basically, got these chips, ran all the way back. So it's a 2 kilometre round trip for my poor mum, got back, and he had 4 hot chips. And she rang me and she said, we just had 4 hot chips. And I said, oh, thank goodness for that. Oh, we're right, we're going to be okay.
Happy days.
And the other reason is there's 4 of us in the family. There's me, my husband, and my daughter and our son.
So sorry, I started to interrupt. You started to tell me about the impact on the rest of the family and your relationship to it. So tell me about that.
So really, cancer has an incredibly tumultuous ripple that affects all of us. So when we are diagnosed within our community, it not only holds on to us, it actually ripples right out throughout the community. But those ripples close by can be the most damaging and the most huge and have the biggest impact on our lives. So my husband and I had a shocking time. We did not get on well at all. I became the lioness as far as I was concerned, and I was in charge, and he became sort of like the nurturer and the carer of our daughter, and he used to come down on weekends, every weekend, but he just used to disrupt my way of doing things. So we had this terrible, angry attraction, like we couldn't live with each other and we couldn't live without each other, and it was really tough at times. It took quite a long time right through the other end the following year, that then when I finally realised that I couldn't deal with so much of and I write about it in the book, but I couldn't deal with everything on my own, and it took a lot of strength for me to actually step back and go, okay, you're going to have to help me. And I allowed him to help me. As soon as I allowed him to help me, our relationship started to mend. It took a lot of time. We did see counsellors, and we had some amazing friends and family around us that were really patient with our temper tantrums, but sort of helped us through that really horrible time. And it did, it was tough. It was really tough. I mean, we were told when we were diagnosed that 2 out of 3 marriages fail when a child is dealt the cancer ticket, unfortunately.
And did you think at that stage, or you just weren't even thinking about it, did you think that's not going to be us?
No, I didn't really care, to tell you the truth. My number one thing was actually get my son to beat this cancer, and I really had no care for our marriage whatsoever, and I was the main catalyst of seeing our marriage disintegrate, but at the same time I was the one that had to make the changes to make it come back, and we did. We came back stronger, and we still have our arguments, believe me, but we have a wonderful relationship in the sense that I actually realised that I couldn't do it all on my own. I already had my mum supporting me, for goodness sake. I was so lucky. I had all these people around me. I had the most fabulous community around me. Mater Dei, the school, was incredible. But at the same time, I was totally in control. No one else knew anything anywhere near the amount that I knew about my son's medications, his protocols, and what he had to go through to beat it.
What's Reed doing now?
So he's now just about to finish his 2nd year study as a primary school teacher, and he's only just done a little bit of prac, so he's just realised that he does want to be a teacher, but he wants to actually take next year off and become a real estate agent. But he's got the gift of the gab. Not sure where he gets that from, but he's going to take that time off. And as David and I both said, our kids have got to enjoy their lives, and they've got to enjoy what they do as work. And if they're doing something that they enjoy, then it's not really work. So, and it's so important, I think. You know, he's very, very good around kids. He's amazing. He's like a bit of a Pied Piper. You know, kids attract to him, and he can carry a conversation with a child just as well as he can with an adult. He's a real communicator.
And just give me a little bit of a sense of how your daughter coped with the whole thing.
Okay, so Alex, she was probably the strongest of us all. She was incredibly careful and mindful all the time. She was the one that smoothed everything over. She was the one, if we lost our keys, she would find them. She was that pacifier amongst us. She's just graduated. She's first year graduated as a social worker, believe it or not. Amazing, gone into another caring role. So she's actually working at Headspace at Caboolture, and she's also doing her master's at the moment in psychosexual therapy to help children who have been sexually abused. It's like she's a very, very precious gem, that one, and she's incredibly clever, and I'm very, very proud of her.
Jo, it's just an amazing journey. I'm running out of time, but I just want you to talk a little bit about your role as the president of Hope Horizons.
Okay, so Hope Horizons is a cancer wellness centre that was started here in 2016. We opened our doors in 2018, and we provide holistic cancer wellness services to anyone that's been affected by cancer, not just the cancer patient, but also the cancer carers and their friends and family. And we provide all of that holistic care, as in allied health care, completely free of charge, which reduces the amount of stress that takes on people if they've got to see a dietitian, or they've got to see a counsellor, or they've got to have a massage. I mean, these are all things that give you extra strength so that you can face your cancer and get on with actually beating it. So we provide that care free of charge whilst ever you're going through cancer, and as soon as your cancer treatment is completed. So we're scaffolding. We're scaffolding to our medical network to make sure that what they do in their medical profession, we give them extra strength so that they can actually go on and fight the cancer a bit better.
Who pays those professionals? You pay them, or they volunteer, or...?
No, we pay them, and it's all funded 100% by our community. So we've just put on 2 paid employees. They start at the beginning of November, and they'll be part-time employees. So we have a little shop over at High Street called Hope on a Hanger, and it's high-end second-hand clothing, and it's really great. And so that provides us some income every month to pay for all our expenses like our laundry, as well as our service providers. So we have professionals that come in all the time to the centre. And the community, basically, we have fundraising events, and so that's how we get our funding. We've recently just secured $1.2 million from Mr. Harvey Black, who is the most incredibly generous man, and he has provided us the opportunity to buy a property, and we will be building a centre, and which will be opening next year. We're at DA process at the moment with council. So as soon as council gives us the tick, we basically have a couple of builders who are quoting to do it, and Harvey's paying for the build.
So this benefactor, is he got a relationship with cancer? Do you know?
None whatsoever. He's completely all about just doing something for the community. He wants called the Jenny Black Cancer Centre after his wife, and she doesn't have a cancer story either. They're just very, very passionate about doing something for the community, and this will actually leave a legacy from their family, and the Black family are going to be part of Hope Horizons going forward. It's actually going to be written in the Constitution. So it's really important that we acknowledge these people, that we've got a lot of them here in Toowoomba that give away so much, and we're so lucky, really.
Jo, you being one of them. Now, Jo, I've only got 5 minutes, but I'll just explain the rules of the game here, because I've just solicited these people just, off the street, not off the street, but just very quickly, and they had no preparedness. I always ask my guests, who's your favourite royal? Doesn't have to be living, doesn't have to be British, and then what's the song that can't keep you off the dance floor? So we'll start off with, who's your favourite royal?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I would have to say I'm really, really impressed with Kate at the moment. I think she's doing some incredible things with her philanthropy and with her connections. I'm just watching her quietly, and I think she's one of those people that she's going to be a quiet achiever, much like her mother-in-law. So her past mother-in-law. I think she's probably my favourite. And the song that can't keep me off the dance floor would have to be the Communards' Don't Leave Me This Way. Or Bronski Beat. They were either called Communards or Bronski Beat at the time, but the same band. But yeah, Don't Leave Me This Way is actually my husband's and my theme song. We sing it very loudly. So yeah, that would be it.
Well, that is a beautiful way to finish this wonderful morning that we've heard the stories of 3 different people and their journey with cancer on Big Little Small Talk, and it's been a real privilege for me to hear it. So thank you, Jo, for being my guest today.
Oh, thank you so much, Megan. I feel very honoured.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.